Welcome to my Channel Deep Sleep Mission-DSM. As we begin, I would be delighted if you could share your location in the comments below. It's truly inspiring to witness how far this content travels and to connect with viewers from across the world. The sound of ticking should be constant, rhythmic, predictable. But when every clock in your house freezes at the exact same moment, night after night, you start to wonder if time itself is trying to tell you something or warn you. I'm about to share something that happened to me last month in my suburban home in Millbrook, Connecticut. Something that still makes my hands shake when I think about it. If you're listening to this alone, especially if it's late at night, you might want to check your own clocks, just to be sure. And now, the story begins. My name is Sarah Chen, and I've always been particular about time. Maybe it's because I work as an air traffic controller at Bradley International, where every second matters. Where being off by even 30 seconds can mean disaster. So, when I moved into my 2-story colonial on Elm Street last October, the first thing I did was synchronize every clock in the house. The grandfather clock in the hallway, the digital alarm on my nightstand, the microwave in the kitchen, even the old analog clock in the guest bedroom that came with the house, all perfectly aligned, all ticking in unison. That's why I noticed immediately when something went wrong. It was a Tuesday night, or technically Wednesday morning. I'd woken up with that heavy feeling you get when your body knows it's too early to be conscious. The room was pitch black, save for the red glow of my alarm clock. 3:17 a.m. I groaned and rolled over, trying to fall back asleep. But something felt off. Usually, I could hear the grandfather clock's pendulum swinging downstairs. Its deep tick-tock was like a heartbeat for the house. But now, silence. Maybe it needs winding, I thought. Though I'd just wound it on Sunday, I dragged myself out of bed, my bare feet finding the cold hardwood floor. The house felt different at night. During the day, it was all sunshine through lace curtains and the smell of coffee. But at 3 a.m., shadows seemed to pool in corners I'd never noticed before. The grandfather clock stood sentinel in the hallway, its brass pendulum frozen mid-swing. The hands pointed to 3:17. Weird, I muttered, reaching for the winding key. That's when I noticed the wall clock in the living room also stopped, also at 3:17. A chill ran down my spine. Though I told myself I was being ridiculous. Power surge, maybe, but that wouldn't affect the wind-up clocks. I checked the kitchen. The microwave display, 3:17. The oven, 3:17. Even my battery-powered clock radio in the den, 3:17. Every single clock in my house had stopped at exactly the same time. I stood in my kitchen, heart hammering, trying to make sense of it. The refrigerator hummed. The dishwasher's cycle light blinked. The power was clearly on. So why? Then I heard it, or rather, I felt it. You know that sensation when someone's watching you, that prickle at the base of your neck? I turned slowly, expecting to see, I don't know what I expected to see. The kitchen was empty, but through the window above the sink, I could have sworn I saw movement in the backyard. Just a flash of something pale against the October darkness. I grabbed my phone to check the time. 3:24 a.m. So time hadn't actually stopped. Just my clocks. All of them. Simultaneously. I spent the next hour resetting every timepiece in the house, telling myself there had to be a logical explanation. Maybe some kind of electromagnetic pulse? I'd heard about those. They could affect electronics, though that didn't explain the mechanical clocks. By 4:30, everything was ticking normally again. I made myself some chamomile tea, sat at the kitchen table, and tried to shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted in my house, in my life. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next evening, I went to bed early, exhausted from work and lack of sleep. I'd almost convinced myself the clock incident was some weird fluke, a story I'd tell at parties. You'll never believe what happened. But at 3:17 a.m., I woke again. This time, I knew before I even looked. That same heavy silence, that same absence of ticking. I grabbed my phone first this time, watched as its display showed 3:17, 3:18, 3:19, while my alarm clock remained frozen. I didn't bother checking the other clocks. I knew what I'd find. Instead, I sat up in bed, listening. Really listening. Because underneath the silence, there was something else. A sound so faint I might have been imagining it. Like whispers. Or wind through leaves. But there was no wind that night. I crept to my bedroom window, peeled back the curtain just enough to peer outside. The street was empty, bathed in the amber glow of streetlights. But in my backyard, near the old oak tree, something moved, a figure, tall, impossibly thin, just standing there, facing my house. I stumbled backward, heart racing, and when I looked again, nothing. Just the oak tree's twisted branches casting shadows across the lawn. You're seeing things, Sarah. Sleep deprivation does that. But I couldn't shake what I'd seen. Or thought I'd seen. The proportions had been all wrong. Too tall, too stretched. Like someone had taken a normal person and pulled them like taffy. I didn't reset the clocks that night. I just sat in my bedroom with all the lights on, waiting for dawn. The next day at work I made mistakes, small ones, but in air traffic control there's no such thing as a harmless error. My supervisor Tom pulled me aside. "Sarah, you okay? You seem distracted." I almost told him, almost said, "Every clock in my house stops at 3:17 a.m., and I think someone's watching me." But how crazy would that sound? "Just having trouble sleeping in the new house," I said instead. "You know how it is. New sounds, new shadows." Tom nodded sympathetically. "Take the weekend, get some rest. This job requires you at 100%. That night, I tried something different. I set up my phone to record video, positioned it to capture both my alarm clock and the window. If something was happening, I'd have proof, but first, I did something else. I called my sister in Seattle. Emma picked up on the third ring. "Sarah, it's like midnight here. What's wrong?" I just needed to hear your voice. I couldn't tell her the truth. She'd think I'd lost it. "New house jitters, you know?" "You sure that's all? You sound scared." I almost broke down then, almost told her everything. But what would she do? Fly across the country to... what? Watch my clocks with me? "I'm fine. Just stay on the phone with me for a bit." We talked about nothing, her kids, her job, normal things, safe things, things that happened in daylight, in a world where clocks didn't stop and shadows didn't watch. At 3:10, I told her I was feeling better, made her promise to call me tomorrow. Then I hung up and waited. 3:17 a.m. came like clockwork, pun intended. I woke to that familiar silence, reached for my phone, and watched the recording back. What I saw made my blood run cold. The video showed my alarm clock ticking normally until 3:16, then at 3:17 exactly, it stopped. But that wasn't the terrifying part. In the reflection on the clock's face, barely visible, was my window. And in that window, for just 3 seconds, was a face, not human, not quite. The features were in the right places, but wrong. Eyes too large, mouth too wide. And it wasn't looking at the clock, it was looking at me, at the camera, like it knew I was recording. I dropped the phone, hands shaking so badly I couldn't pick it up again for several minutes. When I finally did, when I tried to replay the video, the file was corrupted, nothing but static. I didn't sleep for the next 2 days. Couldn't. Every shadow made me jump. Every creak of the house sent my heart racing. I called in sick to work, spent my time researching. First, I looked into the house's history. Nothing dramatic, built in 1952, 3 previous owners. The last one, an elderly woman named Margaret Mills, had lived there for 40 years before passing away peacefully in her sleep. At least, that's what the record said. I dug deeper, found an old article in the Millbrook Gazette archives. Margaret Mills had complained to the police multiple times in her final years about prowlers and peeping toms. The police never found anyone. The neighbors thought she was going senile. But one detail made my skin crawl. In her last report, filed just 2 weeks before her death, she'd mentioned that her clocks kept stopping. The officer had noted it as evidence of her declining mental state. I needed to know more. The Millbrook Historical Society was housed in a converted Victorian near the town center. The volunteer behind the desk, a sweet woman named Dorothy, lit up when I mentioned Elm Street. "Oh, you bought the Mills place. How wonderful. It's such a lovely home, though..." She paused, adjusted her glasses. There were some peculiar stories about that property. Before it was developed, I mean. "What kind of stories?" Dorothy disappeared into the back room, returned with a leather-bound journal. This was kept by one of the original surveyors of the area, 1887. He mentions that particular plot of land several times. She opened to a bookmarked page. The handwriting was cramped, faded, but still legible. The natives avoid this ground. They say it is a thin place where time moves strangely. I myself have noticed my pocket watch behaves erratically here. It stops, always at 17 minutes past the hour, though which hour seems to vary. The men are growing uneasy. They report feeling watched, especially during the pre-dawn hours. I photographed the page with trembling hands. Can I see more? Dorothy flipped through several entries. Each one made my skin crawl more than the last. March 15th, 1887. Jameson claims he saw a figure last night, impossibly tall, he says, standing among the trees. When he called out, it vanished. The men want to move camp. I've agreed. This place feels wrong. March 18th, 1887. 3 miles from the original site. Yet my watch stopped again at 17 past 3 this morning. I was alone in my tent when it happened, alone. Yet I felt eyes upon me, many eyes. When the watch resumed, there were scratches on the tent fabric. From the outside, long, deliberate marks. We leave at dawn. Dorothy closed the journal. There's more, but it becomes incoherent toward the end. The surveyor, Edmund Cross, was admitted to Hartford Asylum 2 months later. He kept insisting that time was hunting him. What happened to the land after that? It sat empty for decades. No one would buy it, until the post-war housing boom in the 1950s. Developers didn't care about old stories. They just saw prime real estate. I thanked Dorothy and left, but not before she grabbed my arm. "Dear, if you're experiencing anything unusual, there's someone you should talk to. Professor Marcus Webb at Central Connecticut State. He studies, well, let's call them temporal anomalies. He's helped others from your street. Others. Plural." I met Professor Webb the next day in his cluttered office. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe 40, with intense green eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Miss Chen," he said before I could even introduce myself properly. "Elm Street. The clocks stop at 3:17. You've seen it, the Thin Man. How did you..." "Because you're the 4th person from that street to find me in the last decade. Please, sit. Tell me everything." I did, every detail. He listened without interrupting, occasionally jotting notes in a leather journal disturbingly similar to the surveyor's. When I finished, he leaned back. "What do you know about liminal spaces? Like airports, places of transition?" "Exactly, but time has liminal spaces too, moments of transition. 11:59 to midnight, 2:59 to 3 o'clock during daylight savings, and 3:17 a.m. Well, that's special. Why? Nobody knows for certain, but across cultures, across centuries, 3:17 a.m. appears again and again. Deaths, disappearances, hauntings. It's as if the universe hiccups. At that precise moment, he pulled out a folder, spread photographs across his desk. My blood ran cold. They were all different, taken in different decades, judging by the quality, but they all showed the same thing, a tall, impossibly thin figure, sometimes in windows, sometimes in doorways, sometimes just standing in the background of family photos, unnoticed until later. "We call it the chronophage," he said quietly, "the time eater. It exists in the spaces between moments, feeding on temporal energy, and it's drawn to people like you." People like me? Those who live by the clock, who measure their lives in precise increments. Air traffic controller, that's perfect for it. You're a beacon of temporal regularity in a chaotic world. He showed me more files, case studies. A train conductor in 1953 whose clocks stopped at 3:17. He was found 3 days later, aged 30 years overnight. A Swiss watchmaker in 1978 who reported similar experiences. She disappeared entirely, leaving behind only a room full of stopped clocks. "But there have been survivors," Webb said, noting my growing panic. "People who broke the pattern, who refused to be prey." That's when he told me about the confrontation method, similar to what the waitress had said, but with more detail, more warnings. When you face it, and you must face it, you cannot show fear. Fear is temporal. It exists in the anticipation of future events. The chronophage feeds on that. You must exist purely in the present moment. No past, no future. Just now. He gave me a small device, looked like an old pocket watch. This might help. It's been modified. When the clocks stop, click it 3 times. It won't stop the chronophage, but it might confuse it, give you an edge. I left his office with more questions than answers, but also with a strange sense of purpose. I wasn't crazy, I wasn't alone, and I wasn't helpless. That night, I didn't go home. I checked into the Holiday Inn near the highway, told myself it was just for one night, just to get some real sleep. But at 3:17 a.m., I woke in my hotel room. The digital clock on the nightstand was frozen. 3:17. The TV display, 3:17. My phone, the only timepiece still working, showed 3:22. It had followed me. I sat up, scanning the darkened room. The heavy curtains blocked any view outside, but I could hear something. Tap, 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 like fingernails on glass. I knew I shouldn't look. Every instinct screamed at me to stay in bed, to hide under the covers like a child. But I had to know. I crept to the window, pulled the curtain back an inch. Nothing. Just the parking lot, empty except for a few cars. But on the window itself, on the outside, were marks. Long, thin scratches in the glass, fresh ones, still catching the light from the parking lot lamps. And in the reflection, just for a moment, I saw it, standing behind me, inside the room. I spun around. Nothing there. But the bathroom door, which I'd definitely closed, was now open. Just a crack, just enough to see the darkness beyond. I grabbed my keys and ran, didn't even put on shoes, just ran, down the hallway, past the confused night clerk, out into the parking lot. I drove for an hour. No destination in mind, just a way. Eventually, I pulled into a 24-hour diner off Route 84, ordered coffee with shaking hands, tried to think. Whatever this was, it wasn't tied to the house. It was tied to me now, following me, growing bolder. The waitress, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, noticed my distress, "You okay, honey? You look like you've seen a ghost." I laughed. It came out hysterical. "Something like that." She sat down across from me, even though it was against policy. "Want to talk about it?" And for some reason, maybe because I was exhausted, maybe because she reminded me of my mom, I told her everything. The clocks, the figure, the scratches on the window. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "My grandmother used to tell stories," she said finally, "about things that exist in the spaces between seconds. Creatures that feed on time itself. She said they're drawn to people who are precise, punctual, people who measure their lives in minutes and seconds. That's..." I wanted to say crazy, but was it any crazier than what I'd experienced? She said they follow patterns, always appear at the same time, because that's when they're strongest, when time hesitates. The waitress stood up. She also said there's a way to break the pattern, but it's dangerous. "Tell me, you have to catch it. At 3:17, not hide, not run, face it. And when all the clocks stop, you have to be the one who makes time move again." I went home that morning, not because I was brave, because I was tired of running. If this thing, whatever it was, had attached itself to me, then running was pointless. I spent the day preparing, bought battery-powered lanterns, placed them throughout the house, set up 3 cameras, different angles, all with fresh memory cards, and in the center of my living room, I arranged every clock I owned in a circle, 13 in total, all synchronized. I also did something else, called my parents in Phoenix, told them I loved them, called Emma again, listened to my nephew laugh in the background. If this went wrong, I wanted those to be my last memories. Not fear, not darkness, love. I wrote a letter, sealed it, addressed it to Professor Webb. Inside, I detailed everything. If I disappeared, at least someone would know the truth. As night fell, I prepared myself mentally. No fear, Webb had said. Exist in the present. I practiced meditation techniques I'd learned years ago. Focused on my breathing, on the here and now. At 2:30 a.m., something unexpected happened. My doorbell rang. I peered through the peephole. Mrs. Patterson from next door stood on my porch, wearing a nightgown and slippers. Her eyes were vacant, staring. "Mrs. Patterson," I called through the door. "Are you okay?" "The clocks," she said, her voice flat, mechanical. "I heard them stop. Did you hear them stop, Sarah?" A chill ran down my spine. "Go home, Mrs. Patterson. Lock your doors." "It's almost time," she continued, as if I hadn't spoken. 17 past 3. It's always 17 past 3. Has been since I was a little girl. Since I lived on this street the first time. First time? Mrs. Patterson had told me she'd just moved here from Florida 2 years ago. "Tick-tock," she whispered. "Tick-tock. Time to feed the hungry minutes." Then she turned and walked away. Not toward her house, but down the street, into the darkness. I wanted to follow, to help, but I knew it was a trap, a distraction. The chronophage was already playing games. I went back to my circle of clocks, sat in the center, waited. 3 a.m. I sat in the center of the circle, watching the clocks tick in unison. My heart kept time with them, tick-tock, tick-tock. 3:10 a.m. The house began to feel different, colder. The shadows seemed to deepen, to gain weight. 3:15 a.m. I heard it. Footsteps on the porch, slow, deliberate. The doorknob rattled, even though I knew I'd locked it. 3:16 a.m. The footsteps moved around the house, past the living room window, past the kitchen, circling, like a predator stalking prey. 3:17 a.m. The clocks stopped, all of them, in perfect unison. The sudden silence was deafening, and then the front door opened. I hadn't heard it unlock, it simply opened, and there it stood. The waitress's grandmother had been wrong about one thing. This wasn't a creature that existed between seconds. This was something that existed outside time altogether. Something that had found a crack in reality at 3:17 a.m. and was using it to enter our world. It had to duck to fit through the doorway. Its limbs were too long, joints in the wrong places. Its face, I can't properly describe its face, features that shifted and blurred, like looking at someone through running water. It moved into the room with horrible grace, approaching the circle of frozen clocks, approaching me. But I remembered what the waitress had said. When time stops, be the one who makes it move again. I reached for the nearest clock, an old wind-up alarm clock, and forced the minute hand forward. It resisted, like moving through molasses, but it moved. 3:18. The creature made a sound. Not quite a scream, not quite static, the sound of time being torn. I grabbed another clock, pushed the hands forward, 3:18. The creature stumbled. Its form flickered, becoming more transparent. Another clock. Another. Each one harder than the last, like the universe itself was fighting me. But I kept going. 3:18, 3:18, 3:18. With each clock I changed. The creature grew weaker. Its horrible limbs began to fold in on themselves. The doorway it had entered through began to shrink. The last clock was the grandfather clock. I had to leave the circle to reach it. Had to pass within inches of the writhing thing. It reached for me. Fingers like icicles brushing my arm. Burning cold, but I made it. Grabbed the clock hands. Forced them forward. 3:18. The creature shrieked. A sound that shattered 2 windows and made my ears bleed. Then it collapsed, folding in on itself like origami in reverse, until it was gone. The front door slammed shut. The clocks began ticking again. All of them. In perfect synchronization. But something else happened. Something Professor Webb hadn't warned me about. As the chronophage vanished, I saw things. Flashes. Memories that weren't mine. The surveyor, Edmund Cross, stumbling through the woods. Clocks hanging from every tree branch. All stopped at 3:17. Margaret Mills, younger, standing in this very room, facing the same creature. The Blackwood girl, Amy, but grown up now, teaching her own daughter to win clocks, to keep them running. Always running. And more. Dozens of people, hundreds, all connected by this moment, this place, this thing that fed on time. I understood then. The chronophage wasn't destroyed, it was merely displaced, pushed back to wherever such things wait, and it would return. Maybe not to me, maybe not to this house, but somewhere, somewhen. Another person would wake at 3:17 to silent clocks and watching shadows. The modified pocket watch Webb had given me was cracked, its face spider-webbed with fractures. Inside, impossibly. The gears were running backward. I collapsed on the floor. Exhausted. Triumphant. And then I noticed something that made my victory turn to ash. The cameras I'd set up. All 3 of them. Their displays showed the same thing. 3:17 a.m. They'd been recording the whole time, but according to them, no time had passed at all, which meant there would be no evidence, no proof, nothing to show that any of this had been real. I checked the footage anyway, static, all of it. Nothing but static and, if you listened carefully, the sound of ticking clocks. It's been 3 weeks now. The clocks haven't stopped again. I sleep through the night, mostly, but sometimes, at 3:17 a.m., I still wake up and I listen, just to make sure they're still ticking, because I know something now, something that keeps me awake some nights. The creature wasn't unique. It was just one of many. pressing against the thin spots in reality, waiting for time to hesitate. And there are so many thin spots, so many moments when time stutters. 11:11, 12:34, 4:44. How many of them are watching? How many are waiting? I still work at the airport, still track time down to the second. But I've made some changes. I've removed most of the clocks from my house, kept just a few, enough to know what time it is, but not enough to create a pattern, not enough to attract attention. I stay in touch with Professor Webb. He tells me I'm one of the lucky ones, that my confrontation was clean. Some people, the chronophage leaves pieces behind, temporal echoes. They see moments before they happen, live Tuesday before Monday, age backward every third Thursday. Mrs. Patterson never came home that night. The police found her 3 states away, with no memory of how she got there. She claimed she'd lost a week, though only 8 hours had passed. She moved away shortly after. I don't blame her. But I know it's still out there, or others like it, because sometimes, just sometimes, when I'm driving home late at night, I'll pass a house where every window is lit, where someone else is awake at 3:17 a.m., checking their clocks, making sure they're still ticking, and I wonder if I should stop. Knock on their door, warn them. But what would I say? How do you tell someone that time itself can be a trap? That punctuality can be a curse? That there are things waiting in the moments between moments? Hungry for those who measure their lives too precisely? You don't. You can't. All you can do is hope they figure it out in time. Before the clocks stop, before the door opens, before they learn what I learned. Some things are meant to remain outside of time, and some doors, once opened, can never truly be closed. But there's one more thing I haven't told you, one detail that keeps me awake even now, weeks later. After the confrontation, after the chronophage vanished, I found something in my backyard, near the old oak tree where I'd first seen it standing. The ground was disturbed, churned up like something had been digging, or climbing out. I got a shovel, started digging. 3 feet down, I found them. Clocks, dozens of them, all different types, different eras. Pocket watches from the 1800s, digital watches from the 1980s. Even a sundial cracked down the middle, and with them, photographs. Faded, water-damaged, but clear enough to see faces. People I didn't recognize, but who all shared the same expression, the same hollow eyes of someone who'd seen time itself become predator. I brought them to Professor Webb. He went pale when he saw them. Trophies, he whispered. It keeps trophies. From the people it takes? No. His voice was barely audible. From the ones who got away, the ones who fought back, these are warnings or promises. He showed me something else then. A map of the United States covered in red pins. Hundreds of them. Each marking a place where clocks had stopped at 3:17, where someone had encountered the chronophage. It's not just one creature, he explained. It's a species. They exist in the temporal breaks, the cracks in time, and they're spreading. Why are you telling me this? Because you survived a direct confrontation. That makes you unique and dangerous to them. He leaned forward. They'll remember you, Sarah. Your temporal signature is burned into their perception. They know you can hurt them. So, what do? Live your life, but stay vigilant. And if you ever meet someone else who mentions stopped clocks, strange figures, lost time, send them to me. We're building a network. Survivors, fighters. People who understand that time isn't just a measurement. It's a battlefield. I took his card, joined his network, started attending meetings in the basement of a Hartford library. Others like me, people who'd stared into the temporal abyss and lived. We share strategies, warning signs, protection methods. Did you know salt disrupts temporal fields? That running water creates a kind of chronological static? That certain frequencies, 417 hertz specifically, can mask your temporal signature? I learned all this and more, became somewhat of an expert in temporal defense, even helped a few people, guided them through their own confrontations. But the nightmares never stopped. Every night, I dream of clocks, endless rooms full of them, all ticking at different speeds, different rhythms, creating a cacophony that drives me to the edge of madness. And in the center of it all, the chronophage, waiting, watching. Sometimes I wonder if I really won that night, or if I just postponed the inevitable, because time always wins in the end. We age, we die, we become memories, then forgotten memories, then nothing at all. Maybe that's what the chronophage really is, not a monster, not an alien, just time itself, given form and hunger. The universe's way of reminding us that every second we steal from eternity must eventually be paid back, with interest. But until that payment comes due, I keep living, keep working, keep checking my clocks at 3:17 a.m. just to make sure they're still ticking, because as long as they tick, I know I'm still here, still fighting, still defying whatever waits in the spaces between seconds. And if you've made it this far in my story, perhaps you're a fighter too. Perhaps you've noticed things, felt things, that don't quite fit into the normal flow of time. Perhaps you've woken at 3:17 a.m. for no reason, heart pounding, certain that someone or something was watching. If so, you're not alone. We're out here. The temporal survivors, the clock watchers, the ones who know that time isn't just a river flowing in one direction, but an ocean with strange tides and stranger creatures swimming in its depths. Professor Webb gave me a phrase, a kind of motto for our group. Time is a predator, but we are not prey. Remember that. When the clocks stop, when the shadows grow long, when the impossible figure appears at your window, you are not prey. You are a guardian of your own timeline, a defender of your personal now, and you have more power than you know. The chronophage feeds on fear, on the anxiety of future moments, and the regret of past ones. But if you can learn to exist purely in the present, to make each second a fortress of absolute now, you become indigestible to it, unpalatable, dangerous. So live. Live fiercely in each moment. Don't just watch time. Inhabit it, own it, make it yours. And maybe, just maybe, when the clocks stop at 3:17 a.m., you'll be ready. Sweet dreams. If you made it this far, check your clocks. Are they all showing the same time? Are they all ticking? Let me know in the comments. And if you've ever experienced something similar, something that happened when time seemed to stop, I'd love to hear about it. Hit subscribe if you want more true stories from the spaces between seconds. And remember, it's not paranoia if something's really watching. Sleep tight. Story number 2. They found my grandmother with her fingers fused to the walls. That's not how the police report described it, of course. The official cause of death was a stroke. Peaceful, they said. Natural causes. But I saw the photos the coroner didn't want me to see. I saw what really happened in that house on Maple Street. And I know why she spent her last moments trying to claw her way out of her own home. My name is Sarah Chen, and if you're listening to this late at night, cozy in your bed, thinking this is just another creepy story to help you drift off to sleep, I need you to pay attention, because what happened in Willow Creek isn't over. It's spreading, and after what I discovered in my grandmother's attic, I think it might already be too late, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. From the day I first noticed that not a single bird would fly over that cursed town. The story begins now. The GPS died exactly at the town limits. One moment, the robotic voice was guiding me through the Colorado mountain passes. The next, nothing but static. My phone showed full bars, but every app that needed location services just stopped, like Willow Creek existed in some kind of dead zone that technology couldn't penetrate. I pulled over at the rusted sign marking the town entrance. Population 2,847, it claimed, though the numbers looked like they'd been painted over multiple times. Each layer slightly different: 3,492, 2,901, 2,847, always decreasing, never growing. That's when I noticed the birds. A massive flock of crows approached from the south, their bodies a black cloud against the October sky. They flew in perfect formation until they reached the exact point where I'd stopped. Then, they split. Like water hitting an invisible wall, they veered sharply east and west, going miles out of their way to avoid flying directly over the town. I sat there for 10 minutes, watching. Sparrows did the same thing. A hawk circled 3 times at the boundary before turning back. Even a commercial plane seemed to adjust its flight path, though that had to be coincidence. Right? The wrongness of it made my skin crawl. Birds don't just avoid entire towns. Not without reason. I should have turned around right then. Should have called the lawyer, told him to handle everything remotely. But Grandma Rose had raised me for 3 years after my parents died. I owed her this much, to at least see her home one last time, to understand why she'd stayed in this place for 40 years, even after Grandpa died, even after everyone told her to leave. The drive into town took 12 minutes. 12 minutes of absolute silence. No birds singing, no dogs barking. Even my car seemed to run quieter, like the engine was afraid to disturb whatever slept here. Main Street looked like a Norman Rockwell painting that had been left in the sun too long. Everything was there. The general store, the diner, the barber shop with its spinning pole, but the colors were wrong. Faded, like the whole town was holding its breath. I parked outside Milligan's general store. Needed supplies, and needed to feel normal for a minute. The bell above the door sounded too loud in the silence. "You must be Rose's granddaughter." I jumped. The woman behind the counter had appeared without sound, silver hair perfect, wearing a tracksuit that probably cost more than my rent. Her smile was warm, but her eyes were measuring me. "I'm Margaret Milligan. Your grandmother told me all about you, Sarah." She came around the counter, movements too smooth for someone her age. "We've been expecting you." "Expecting me?" "I only decided to come yesterday." Her smile widened. "Rose said you'd come. Said you'd need to understand. She left something for you, but promised you'd stop here first." She reached under the counter and pulled out an envelope. My name was written on it in Grandma's shaky handwriting. Inside, a single key and a note. "Sarah, my dear, don't go in the attic until you understand. The birds know. Watch them. Learn why. And whatever you do, don't breathe with it. Rose." "Breathe with what?" I asked. Margaret's face went carefully neutral. "Best you get settled first. The house is on Maple Street, 3rd on the left. Your grandmother was particular about timing. Said you'd know when you were ready." She walked me to the door, her hand on my elbow just firm enough to be guiding rather than friendly. "One more thing, Sarah. The town has rhythms, patterns. You'll notice them soon enough. When you do," she squeezed my arm, "try not to join them." The house squatted on Maple Street like it was trying to sink into the earth. Sage green paint peeling at the edges, windows dark despite the afternoon sun. The other houses on the street looked similar, maintained but abandoned, lived in but lifeless. I used the key from the envelope. The door opened with a sigh that sounded almost human. Inside, time had stopped the day Grandma died. Her reading glasses lay folded on a library book. The respiratory system of Colorado cave formations. Her crossword puzzle waited on the kitchen table, nearly finished. A coffee cup with lipstick marks sat in the sink, unwashed. but it was the walls that made me step back. Every surface was covered in something. At first, I thought it was water damage. Dark stains spreading from the corners where walls met ceiling, but the patterns were too regular, too deliberate. Like veins under skin, they pulsed with a rhythm I could almost detect. No. Trick of the light. Old house, old pipes. I was letting the strange bird behavior get to me. I spent the rest of the day doing normal things. Unpacking, making lists, calling the utility companies. Pretending I couldn't hear the house settling around me with sounds that seemed too organic for wood and plaster. The sun set at 6:47. I know because that's when every light on the street turned on simultaneously. Not gradually, like people coming home from work. All at once, like synchronized breathing. I made soup from a can, ate watching the street through the kitchen window. Nothing moved out there. No cars. No people walking dogs. Just empty sidewalks and lit windows that revealed nothing of the lives inside. At exactly 9 p.m., the lights went out. All of them. Every house on the street going dark in the same instant. Except mine. I stood at the window, soup bowl forgotten, watching the darkness. That's when I saw them. Figures standing in the street, not moving, not talking. Just standing there, faces turned up toward my lit windows. Dozens of them. Waiting. I turned off my lights with shaking hands. Stood there in the dark, holding my breath. When I finally worked up the courage to peek through the curtains again, the street was empty. Sleep came in fragments. The house made sounds no house should make, wet sounds, organic sounds, and underneath it all, a rhythm. Like breathing, but deeper, slower, coming from everywhere and nowhere. At 3 a.m. exactly, I gave up on sleep. That's when I heard it clearly for the first time. The sound that would haunt me forever. The sound that explained why birds wouldn't fly over Willow Creek. The entire house was breathing. I lay rigid in bed, every muscle tense, counting. In, hold, out, 15 breaths per minute, exactly. The walls expanded and contracted with each cycle, so subtle you'd miss it if you weren't looking. But once you noticed, I grabbed my phone, started recording. The timestamp showed 3 a.m. The breathing had started exactly then. Like clockwork, like something scheduled. By 3:30, I couldn't stand it anymore. I crept downstairs, bare feet silent on the old wood. The breathing was everywhere. In the walls, the floors. Even the air itself seemed to pulse with it. The dark stains I'd noticed earlier were more visible now, glowing faintly with some kind of phosphorescence. In the kitchen, the crossword puzzle had changed. I was sure of it. Where before there had been empty squares, now words filled the spaces. But not in Grandma's handwriting. The letters were shaky, uneven, like someone writing with their non-dominant hand. Or something learning to write for the first time. 1 across, Sarah. 5 down, understand. 7 across, attic. My hands shook as I picked up the puzzle. Underneath, another note in Grandma's writing. When it knows your name, you're running out of time. The breathing seemed to intensify, walls flexing more visibly. And then I heard something else. Whispers. Not words exactly, but patterns in the air between breaths. Like voices speaking in frequencies just beyond human perception. I looked at the key Margaret had given me. Not the house key, a different one. Older, the kind that might open an attic door. Every instinct screamed at me to leave. Pack up, drive away, never look back. But those figures in the street, they'd been waiting for something. And the birds knew something I didn't. I had to understand. The stairs to the second floor creaked with each step, but the sound was swallowed by the breathing. It was louder up here, more insistent. The phosphorescent veins in the walls pulsed brighter, creating a network of light that led to one door at the end of the hall. The attic. The key fit perfectly. The door swung open to reveal a pull-down ladder already extended. waiting. The smell hit me first. Sweet and chemical, like overripe fruit mixed with formaldehyde. The breathing was deafening up here, coming from all directions. I climbed the ladder, phone flashlight cutting through the darkness. What I found there changed everything I thought I knew about the world. The attic wasn't an attic anymore. It was alive. The walls, ceiling, and floor were covered in tissue. Not like wallpaper or insulation, actual living tissue. It pulsed with the breathing, wet and glistening in my phone's light. Veins as thick as garden hoses ran through it, pumping something dark and viscous. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the photographs. Hundreds of them, pressed into the living walls like specimens in amber. All of them showed the same thing. People standing in their homes, smiling at the camera. Normal family photos. Except their fingers were sunk into the walls behind them. Their skin had the same phosphorescent glow as the veins in my grandmother's house. And their eyes were completely black. I found one of Grandma Rose, recent based on her age. She stood in this very attic, both hands pressed against the breathing walls, that same terrible smile on her face. But her eyes still had color, still had life. At the bottom, in her handwriting, day 14,234. Still myself. Still fighting. 40 years. She'd been fighting this for 40 years. A wet sound made me turn. In the corner, where the tissue was thickest, something pushed through the wall. A hand. Human, but wrong. Too many joints. Fingers that bent in impossible directions. It beckoned to me. That's when the whispers became words. "Sarah." The voice was made of hundreds of voices, all speaking in unison. "We've been waiting for you." I scrambled backward, nearly falling down the ladder. The hand stretched further from the wall, followed by an arm, a shoulder. A face began to push through the tissue. Features blurred and shifting like someone underwater. "Don't run," it whispered. "We need you. The town needs you. Just like it needed Rose." I ran. Down the ladder, through the hall, down the stairs. The house groaned around me, walls flexing, trying to block my path. The front door wouldn't open. The windows were sealed. The breathing grew faster, angry. Finally, I remembered the back door. Burst through it into the pre-dawn darkness. Ran to my car, fumbling for keys. That's when I saw them again. Every resident of Willow Creek stood in the street. Hundreds of them. All breathing in perfect unison. 15 breaths per minute. Their eyes reflected the phosphorescent glow from the houses, and they were all smiling. "She's not ready," one of them said. Margaret Milligan stepped forward from the crowd. "But she will be. They always are in the end." I got in my car, locked the doors, started the engine. But as I drove through those crowds of breathing people, I understood something terrible. My own breathing had synced with theirs. I was already becoming part of it. I made it 3 miles out of town before the seizure hit. One moment I was driving, hands death-gripped on the wheel. The next, my lungs simply stopped working. Not like holding your breath, like forgetting how to breathe entirely. My body convulsed, the car swerving across the empty road. Somehow, I managed to pull over before blacking out. I woke up in the Willow Creek Medical Center. Clean white walls, smell of antiseptic, normal hospital sounds. For a moment, I thought I'd imagined everything. Then I tried to sit up and realized I was strapped to the bed. "Please don't struggle." Dr. Patricia Hendricks stood at the foot of my bed, clipboard in hand. Middle-aged, kind eyes, looking exactly like a small-town doctor should. Except for the way she breathed. That same measured rhythm. 15 breaths per minute. "What did you do to me?" She pulled up a chair, sitting close enough that I could see the faint phosphorescent veins under her skin. "We didn't do anything, Sarah. Your body did it to itself. You tried to leave while synchronized. The breathing doesn't like that. The breathing, that's what we call it, though it has older names. The Arapaho who lived here centuries ago called it the Earth's lung. The miners in 1962 called it the devil's breath before they were absorbed. She unstrapped my arms, helping me sit up. Your grandmother never told you the real story, did she? She wanted to protect you. Thought if you never knew, you'd never be claimed. Claimed? Dr. Hendricks went to the window, gesturing for me to join her. Outside, Willow Creek looked perfectly normal in the morning sun. People walking dogs, kids riding bikes, a postman making deliveries. In 1962, the Hadley Mining Company was drilling a new shaft. They broke through into a cavern system that shouldn't have existed. The geology was all wrong, but what they found down there... She paused. Have you ever wondered if the Earth itself might be alive? Not metaphorically, literally. A single vast organism that we live on like bacteria on skin? I stayed silent, watching a kid bounce a ball in perfect rhythm. 15 bounces per minute. They found proof, a massive organ system kilometers deep, living tissue older than multicellular life, breathing, thinking in its slow way. And when they broke through, they woke it up. That's impossible. Is it? You've seen the walls, felt the breathing. Your grandmother spent 40 years documenting it. She handed me a thick folder. Her real research. Not the newspapers in the attic. Those were for visitors. This is the truth. I opened the folder. Medical charts, tissue samples, photographs of the thing underground. Massive, pulsing chambers that looked more like organs than caves. And growth charts showing how it had spread. It started with the miners, Dr. Hendricks continued. They breathed in the spores, microscopic, undetectable. Within days, they were synchronized. Within weeks, they were changing. The company tried to contain it, sealed the mine, evacuated the town. But it was already too late. A photograph showed miners standing at the shaft entrance. Their skin had that telltale glow. Their fingers were fused together. Their smiles were too wide. It spread through the groundwater, through the air, through the very earth beneath the town. Everyone who stayed more than a few days became infected, synchronized, part of the greater organism. Then why aren't you all like those things in the walls? She smiled sadly. Because we learned to manage it, to live with it instead of fighting it. The breathing doesn't want to destroy us. It wants to incorporate us, to add our consciousness to its own. Some of us found ways to maintain our individuality while still being part of the collective. Your grandmother was one of the best at it, but she died. Her fingers were fused to the walls. After 40 years of resistance, 40 years of fighting to stay herself while keeping the town secret. She was tired, Sarah, and when she knew you were coming, she made a choice, gave herself to the breathing completely so she could speak to you through it, guide you. I thought of the crossword puzzle, the messages, the hand reaching through the attic wall. That was her, part of her. Filtered through the collective consciousness. She's in there along with hundreds of others. They're not dead, they're transformed. Part of something vast and ancient and patient. Why the birds? I asked suddenly. Why won't they fly over? Dr. Hendricks actually laughed. Because they're smarter than us. They can sense what Willow Creek really is. A single massive organism wearing the disguise of a town. Every building is an organ. Every street is a vein, and we're the cells that keep it functioning. She stood, checking her watch. It's almost noon, time for Margaret to explain the rest. She's waited 60 years for someone like you, someone like me, someone with Rose's bloodline, Rose's resistance, someone who can lead the next generation of the Watch. She opened the door. The breathing is growing stronger. spreading further. We need someone who can help us maintain the balance, or decide if it's time to let it wake up completely. Margaret Milligan waited in the hospital lobby, still in her tracksuit, still smiling that measuring smile. "Ready for the truth, dear?" she asked. "All of it?" I thought about running, but my breathing was still synchronized. 15 breaths per minute. I was already trapped. "Show me," I said. She led me to the old mining museum, down into the basement, through a door marked "Authorized Personnel Only," down stone steps that predated the town, into darkness that breathed. The cavern opened up like a cathedral made of flesh. The walls pulsed with that familiar rhythm. Veins of light traced patterns too complex for human minds to follow. And in the center was the heart. It was the size of a house. A massive, beating heart of living tissue suspended in the cavern by thick tendrils that disappeared into darkness. Each beat sent waves of phosphorescent fluid through veins as thick as tree trunks. The sound was deafening. Not just heard but felt, vibrating through every bone in my body. Beautiful, isn't it? Margaret stood beside me, her face rapturous in the pulsing light. The heart of Willow Creek, the true town center. Others emerged from the shadows. Dr. Hendricks, Tom Garrett from the water plant, the postman I'd seen earlier, about 20 people in all, each breathing in perfect sync with the massive heart. "We are the Watch," Margaret continued. "The conscious cells in this greater organism. We guide its growth, shape its dreams, keep it stable. And if you fail," a new voice answered, young, clear, wrong. A girl stepped forward, maybe 10 years old, but her eyes were ancient. When she breathed, the heart seemed to match her rhythm, not the other way around. "I'm Emma," she said. "I was born here. Born breathing with it. I've never known anything else." She touched the nearest wall, and veins of light spread from her fingers. "The old watch is failing. People like Margaret, like your grandmother, they resist too much, fight too hard. The breathing needs acceptance, unity. It needs us to stop seeing it as other and start seeing it as self." "She's the future," Tom said quietly. "Kids like her, born into the synchronization. They don't fight it because they don't know there's anything to fight." "But we need a bridge," Margaret added. "Someone who understands both worlds. Someone who can help the transition happen smoothly. Rose chose you, Sarah. Brought you here knowing what you'd find. I didn't choose anything. I backed away, but the cavern had no exit anymore. The entrance had sealed, flesh flowing over stone. Your grandmother's final gift," Emma said, producing a small vial from her pocket. "Her extracted consciousness. 40 years of memories and knowledge about the breathing. Drink this, and you'll understand everything she understood, know everything she knew." The vial glowed with that familiar phosphorescence. Inside, something swirled like smoke. "Or don't," Margaret said. "Try to leave, fight the synchronization, end up like the others who resisted too hard, absorbed completely, consciousness scattered through the collective until there's nothing left of who you were. Those are my only choices. Join you or disappear. There is another option." The voice came from the heart itself. Not heard but felt, vibrating through the cavity of my chest. The watch members fell to their knees, but I remained standing, transfixed. The heart's surface rippled, and a face emerged. Not human. Not anything that had ever been human, but somehow familiar. "You could choose to wake me fully," it said. "For 60 years I have slept, dreamed, grown slowly, but with the right catalyst, someone of Rose's bloodline, willing to give themselves completely, I could wake, could rise, could spread beyond this valley." "No!" Margaret struggled to her feet. The balance must be maintained if it wakes fully. If I wake fully, the heart continued, I will transform your world. No more hiding, no more pretending. Humanity will breathe as one, think as one, be as one. The loneliness of individual consciousness will end. You will be part of something magnificent. And everything human will die, Dr. Hendricks whispered. Will it, or will it evolve? Your grandmother wondered the same thing for 40 years. In the end, she chose to join me rather than decide. But you're stronger. You could choose for everyone. The vial in Emma's hand pulsed brighter. I thought about the birds, wise enough to avoid this valley, about the families who'd fled over the decades, about my grandmother, fighting for 40 years to maintain her identity. But I also thought about the loneliness of modern life, the isolation, the disconnect between people even as we lived closer together than ever. Was individuality really worth protecting if it meant being forever alone in our own skulls? I need time, I said. Time is what I have most of, the heart replied. I have slept for millennia. I can sleep a while longer, but not forever. The watch weakens. The young ones, like Emma, feel the pull toward unity. Soon, someone will choose. Better it be someone who understands the weight of that choice. The entrance reopened. Suddenly, I could leave. Take the vial. Emma pressed it into my hand. Learn what Rose knew, then decide. I stumbled out of the cavern, up the stairs into the blazing afternoon sun. The town looked different now that I knew what lay beneath. Every building breathed. Every street pulsed with hidden veins. Every person was a cell in something vast and alien and terrifyingly patient. I made it back to Grandma's house, my house. Sat at the kitchen table where she'd done her crosswords for 40 years, fighting to stay herself. The vial glowed on the table before me. Inside was everything she'd learned, everything she'd fought for and against. All I had to do was drink it, and I'd understand. But understanding meant accepting, meant becoming part of Willow Creek forever. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. The birds are starting to forget why they avoid us. Generation by generation, the memory fades. Soon, they'll fly over again. When they do, it will be too late to choose. M. I held the vial up to the light. Such a small thing to hold such enormous consequences. That was 3 days ago. I'm still here. Still breathing 15 breaths per minute. Still human, mostly. The vial sits on my nightstand, unopened but always present. Every morning, I wake up thinking today will be the day I decide. Every night, I fall asleep to the sound of the house breathing around me. The watch has accepted my indecision. For now, they know I can't leave. No, eventually I'll have to choose. Emma visits sometimes, telling me about the peace of total unity. Margaret shares stories of those who fought to stay human and what it cost them. And late at night, when the breathing is loudest, I hear my grandmother's voice in the whispers between breaths. Not words, just presence, letting me know she's there, part of something vast and patient and waiting. The birds still refuse to fly over Willow Creek. But yesterday, I saw a crow land on the town limit sign, just for a moment. Testing. The memory is fading, the protection growing thin. Soon, someone will have to choose. Wake it fully or find a way to kill it. Unite with it or destroy it. There's no middle ground anymore, if there ever was. So, I sit here in my grandmother's house, in this town that breathes, holding the key to humanity's future in a small glass vial, knowing that whatever I choose, the world will never be the same. The really terrifying part? The longer I stay, the more the unity makes sense. The more the loneliness of individual thought feels like a burden rather than a gift. The more I understand why Emma smiles that ancient smile. Maybe that's how it wins. Not through force or fear, but by offering something we all secretly want. Connection, unity, an end to the terrible isolation of being trapped in our own minds. Or maybe that's just the spores talking. After 3 weeks of breathing with it, I can't tell anymore. If you're listening to this, if you're lying in bed wondering if this is real, do me a favor. Tomorrow, watch the birds. See if they avoid certain places. See if they remember dangers that humans have forgotten. Because if they've started flying over your town, if they've forgotten why they once stayed away, then you're already breathing with it. You just don't know it yet. Sweet dreams. And remember, when you wake at 3 a.m. to the sound of breathing that isn't yours, don't match the rhythm. Don't join the synchronization. Unless, of course, you're ready to be part of something bigger, something patient, something that's been waiting so very long to wake up. The choice, in the end, is yours, just like it's mine. The vial glows on my nightstand as I speak these words, calling, promising, waiting. 15 breaths per minute, in, hold, out, forever. Story number 3. They say everyone has a doppelganger somewhere in the world. But what if you found 12 of them, sitting in a circle, all staring at you with your own eyes? Before you click away, I need you to understand something. This isn't about twins or lookalikes. This is about what I discovered in the basement of St. Mary's Community Center in Portland, Oregon, and why I can never look in a mirror the same way again. If you're listening to this alone, maybe turn on a light, just in case. The story begins now. The flyer was taped to the bulletin board at Whole Foods, right between a lost cat poster and someone offering guitar lessons. Finding Your True Self, support group for identity issues, it read in plain Arial font. Meeting every Tuesday at 7 p.m. St. Mary's Community Center, room B12. I almost walked past it. Would have, actually, if my therapist, Dr. Chen, hadn't just suggested I try group therapy. Sarah, she'd said during our last session, sometimes healing happens when we realize we're not alone in our struggles. Not alone. If only she knew how those words would haunt me. That first Tuesday in October, I drove to St. Mary's with a knot in my stomach. The community center sat on Burnside Street, one of those old brick buildings that seemed to absorb the Portland rain into its very bones. The parking lot was nearly empty. Just a few cars scattered under the amber streetlights. I sat in my Honda Civic for 5 minutes, engine off, watching my breath fog the windshield. Identity issues. That's what the flyer said. Did I have identity issues? After 32 years of feeling like I was playing a character in my own life, yeah, maybe I did. The main entrance was locked. A handwritten note directed support group members to the side door. I followed a narrow path between the building and a chain-link fence, my footsteps echoing off the wet concrete. The side door opened to a stairwell that smelled like old coffee and industrial cleaner. Down. The arrow pointed down. Room B12 was in the basement. Of course it was. The fluorescent lights hummed as I descended, that particular frequency that makes your teeth ache if you pay too much attention to it. At the bottom, a long hallway stretched out, doors on either side. B8, B10, B12. I knocked. Waited. Nothing. The doorknob was cold under my hand as I turned it. The room beyond was dimly lit, chairs arranged in a circle. About half were occupied, but I couldn't make out faces in the low light. Everyone seemed to be looking down at their laps. "Welcome," a voice said from across the circle. Soft, familiar somehow. "Please, take a seat. We're about to begin." I chose a chair near the door. Always good to have an exit strategy, right? As my eyes adjusted, I counted the others. 12 people, including the one who'd spoken. All wearing similar dark clothing. All with their heads down. "Let's start with introductions," the facilitator said. Still, that strange, familiar quality to the voice. "I'll go first. My name is Sarah, and I've been struggling with feeling like I don't know who I really am. My breath caught. Sarah, my name, but lots of people are named Sarah. It's common. The third most popular name for girls born in 1992, actually. I'd looked it up once. I work at Powell's Books, she continued, in the Pearl District location. I live alone with my cat, Mochi. And lately, I've been feeling like I'm disappearing. Powell's Books, Pearl District. I worked at the downtown location, but still. And Mochi. I'd almost named my cat Mochi, went with Biscuit instead. This was getting weird. Thank you for sharing, Sarah, someone to her left said. Another woman. I'm also Sarah. I work at Powell's, the Hawthorne location. I have a cat named Biscuit. The fluorescent light above us flickered. In that strobe-like moment, I saw her face. My face. Not similar, not kind of like me. My exact face down to the small scar above my left eyebrow from when I fell off my bike at 7 years old. My hand went to the door handle, but I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. One by one, they began to lift their heads. Sarah after Sarah after Sarah. All 32 years old. All with shoulder-length brown hair that never quite cooperated with humidity. All with that slightly crooked nose from breaking it in high school volleyball. All me. Don't be afraid, the facilitator said. She was looking at me now with my own green eyes. Not my color green. My exact eyes. We've all been where you are right now. The shock, the disbelief. But you're here for a reason. This, my voice cracked, this isn't possible. Isn't it? Another me spoke from across the circle. This one wore glasses. I'd been meaning to get my prescription checked. You've felt it, haven't you? That sense that you're not quite real, like you're watching your life from the outside. I had. God help me, I had felt exactly that. We all found the flyer, Glasses Me continued. All of us Sarahs, all of us lost, and now we're finding ourselves together. I should have run. Every instinct screamed at me to get up, get out, get away, but I stayed, because despite the impossibility of it all, they understood. These other Sarahs, they knew exactly what it felt like to go through life feeling like a ghost in your own skin. The first meeting is always the hardest, the facilitator said. Let's call her Prime Sarah, just to keep things straight in my head. Why don't we go around the circle, share what brought you here? They told their stories. Our stories. Sarah from Beaverton, who worked at Powell's in the rare book section. Sarah from Southeast, who worked in the children's department. Sarah from Lake Oswego, from Gresham, from St. John's. All Powell's employees, but different locations, different departments. All living alone with cats that were almost named Mochi, or actually named Biscuit, or Whiskers, or Mr. Darcy. The details were what got to me. Each Sarah had broken her nose playing volleyball, but in slightly different ways. Spiking, blocking, diving for a save. Each had that scar above the left eyebrow. But from bikes, skateboards, ice skating. Like someone had taken my life and run it through a filter, creating variations on a theme. How? I finally asked when it came to my turn. How is this happening? Prime Sarah smiled. My smile, but sadder. We're not sure, but we have theories. Have you ever heard of quantum superposition? I shook my head. The idea that particles can exist in multiple states simultaneously until observed. Glasses Sarah chimed in. Some of us think we're collapsed possibilities. Versions of Sarah that could have been, all existing in the same space. That's insane. Is it more insane than this? She gestured around the circle. I had no answer for that. The meeting followed a strange rhythm. We shared our days, our identical yet different days. The same customers at different Powell's locations. The same anxiety about turning 33 next spring. The same dream about drowning that we'd all been having since August. That last one made everyone go quiet. You too? Sarah from Beaverton whispered. I nodded. Every Tuesday and Friday, I'm in dark water, and I can see the surface, but when I swim up, there's something in the way, like glass. A barrier, several Sarahs said in unison. Prime Sarah stood abruptly. I think that's enough sharing for tonight, same time next week? The others began to file out. I noticed they were careful not to touch each other. When I reached the door, Prime Sarah called out, "The new Sarah, wait." I turned. We were alone now, just two versions of the same person in a dingy basement room. It gets easier, she said. The shock, I mean. You'll start to see the benefits. Benefits? We're not alone anymore. We understand each other completely. No more explaining yourself, no more feeling like nobody gets you. We're building something here, a community of Sarahs. How many are there? She tilted her head. Our head. That thing I did when I was thinking. We're not sure. They keep finding the flyer, keep showing up. Started with just 3 of us back in June. The flyer? I pulled it from my pocket. But the paper was blank. No words, no meeting time. Just yellowed paper with tape marks at the corners. Prime Sarah's smile widened. Only Sarahs can see it. Only Sarahs who are ready. I left through that same side door, hurried to my car, but in the parking lot I stopped. 4 Honda Civics, all silver, all with the same Powell's employee parking sticker, all with the same fuzzy dice hanging from the rearview mirror. A gag gift from our best friend Anna last Christmas. I drove home in silence. No radio, no podcast, just the sound of rain on the windshield and my own thoughts chasing each other in circles. That night, I dreamed of drowning again. But this time, when I looked up through the dark water, I saw faces pressed against the glass barrier. All my face. All trying to break through. I told myself I wouldn't go back. Spent the whole week trying to convince myself it had been a hallucination. Gas leak in the basement, maybe, or a really vivid dream. But then I saw her at Powell's. Actually, no. First, I need to tell you about the notebook. Wednesday morning, I woke up to find my journal on the kitchen table. The one I keep in my nightstand drawer. Always. It was open to yesterday's entry, except I hadn't written anything yesterday. The handwriting was mine, though. Every loop and slash exactly how I form my letters. The meeting was wonderful, it read. Finally found others who understand. Can't wait for next Tuesday. Below that, in fresher ink, don't trust Prime Sarah. She's not what she seems. And below that, in pencil, check your voicemails. I had 17 new voicemails. All from unknown numbers. All the same voice, my voice. Whispering variations of the same message. She's collecting us. Don't let her complete the set. The drowning dreams are the key. I deleted them all, but they kept coming back. Every time I checked, 17 voicemails. Always 17. That's when I saw her at Powell's. Wednesday afternoon, I was reshelfling in the fiction section when I glanced toward the information desk. Sarah with glasses stood there, helping a customer find a cookbook. My supervisor walked right past her, nodding a greeting like she'd worked there for years. She caught me staring, winked, then went back to her customer as if it was the most normal thing in the world. Thursday, I saw 2 more. One in the coffee shop across the street, reading the exact book I'd bought but hadn't started yet. Another waiting at my usual bus stop, wearing the rain jacket I'd almost purchased last month but decided was too expensive. By Monday, I was seeing them everywhere. Not just glimpses, full sightings. Sarahs living their parallel lives in my city, shopping at my grocery store. Walking dogs in my neighborhood, dogs that looked suspiciously like the golden retriever I'd grown up with. I started taking different routes to work, shopping at different times. But it didn't matter. Portland was filling up with Sarahs, and only I seemed to notice. Anna didn't see them. When I pointed out Sarah from Beaverton at the food carts, Anna just saw a stranger. When I mentioned running into someone from group therapy at Powell's, my supervisor said I was the only Sarah on the schedule. Tuesday came again. I sat in my car outside St. Mary's for 20 minutes this time, watching. I counted 15 women entering through that side door, all my height, all with my walk, that slightly pigeon-toed gait I'd tried to correct in college. I went in. The circle was bigger now. 20 chairs, all full except one. They'd been waiting for me. "Welcome back," Prime Sarah said. "We're so glad you came." The meeting started the same way, introductions, stories. But something was different. The other Sarahs looked tired, drawn, like they hadn't been sleeping. "The dreams are getting worse," one said. Sarah from Milwaukee, apparently. When had out-of-state Sarahs started showing up? I can feel myself drowning, even when I'm awake now. Murmurs of agreement around the circle. "It's the convergence," Prime Sarah said. "We're getting closer." "Closer to what?" I asked. She looked at me with those familiar green eyes, but there was something else there now, something hungry, to becoming whole. The room felt smaller suddenly. The fluorescent light flickered again, and in the darkness between, I thought I saw more faces, more Sarahs, standing in the shadows outside our circle, watching, waiting. "You see them too," Glasses Sarah said. It wasn't a question. The ones who haven't found their way to group yet. They're drawn to us, but they can't quite cross over. Cross over from where? From all the places we could have been. Prime Sarah stood, began walking around the outside of the circle. Every choice creates a branch. Every moment splits reality. We're the Sarahs who made slightly different choices, but stayed close enough to overlap. That's not how physics works. Isn't it? She was behind me now. I could feel her breath on my neck. My breath. How many times have you stood at a crossroads and felt yourself split? Felt the other you, the one who made the different choice, walking away? Too many times. The job offer in Seattle I'd turned down. The apartment in Northeast I'd almost rented. The marriage proposal I'd said no to. "He proposed to you too?" a Sarah across the circle whispered. "David?" I nodded, throat tight. "I said yes," she continued. "Biggest mistake of my life. He was..." She stopped. We all knew what he was, what he'd done, or almost done, or would have done. The branches are collapsing. Prime Sarah returned to her seat. All the scattered Sarahs, all the possibilities, we're coming together. The dreams are the first sign. Soon. Soon what? She smiled. We all smiled. The same sad, knowing smile. Soon there will only be one. The meeting ended abruptly. Again, that careful filing out, no touching. But as I reached the door, I felt a hand on my arm. Cold, too cold. I turned. It wasn't one of the Sarahs from the circle. This one was wrong. Her face was mine, but blurred, like a photograph taken through water. Her clothes were soaked, dripping onto the linoleum floor. "Don't come back," she whispered. Her voice was full of water. "It's not what you think. The convergence, it's not..." She flickered, disappeared, left only a puddle where she'd stood. But there was something in the puddle. A photograph. Waterlogged but visible. It showed all of us Sarahs standing in a circle. But we weren't in the basement. We were somewhere else, somewhere dark. And in the center, where Prime Sarah should have been, nothing. Just a black void shaped like a person. I pocketed the photo and ran. Up the stairs, through the side door, across the parking lot. 23 silver Honda Civics sat under the streetlights. I didn't know which was mine. They all had the same fuzzy dice, the same parking stickers, the same... But one had something different. A piece of paper under the windshield wiper. My handwriting again. Third from the left, trust yourself. Sarah who remembers. I picked the third car from the left. The key worked, of course it did. As I drove away, I saw them in the windows of the community center. Dozens of Sarahs, all watching, all waiting, all me. I tried to leave Portland. Wednesday morning, I packed a bag, called in sick to Powell's, and drove toward Seattle. Maybe distance would break whatever this was. Maybe I could outrun myself. I made it as far as Longview before I saw the roadblock. Not a police roadblock. A Sarah roadblock. 20 of them standing across I-5, all wearing the same rain jacket I had on. Cars passed right through them like they weren't there, but I could see them, and they could see me. I turned around. The dreams weren't dreams anymore. I was drowning all the time now, even with my eyes open. Water in my lungs that no one else could see. That glass barrier pressing down, covered with faces. My face. All trying to break through from their side. But Thursday night, something different happened. In the dream, one of the faces pressed against the glass held up a sign. She's listening. Find the first Sarah. I woke up gasping. My sheets were soaked, but not with sweat. With lake water, I could smell it. That particular mix of algae and mud and something else. Something familiar. Lake Oswego, where one of the Sarahs said she was from. I called in sick Friday and drove out to Lake Oswego. I didn't know what I was looking for until I saw it. Millennium Plaza Park. The lake where I'd almost drowned when I was 8. Where my parents had pulled me out just in time. Where I'd seen, no, that was impossible. But I remembered now. Under the water, I'd seen another girl. She looked just like me. She was reaching up, trying to break through something invisible. I'd told my parents, but they said it was just oxygen deprivation. Hallucinations. The lake was calm that morning. Empty except for a woman sitting on the dock. She turned as I approached. Another Sarah, but this one was different. Older, maybe 40, 45. She smiled sadly. "You're starting to remember," she said. "Good. That means there's still time." "Time for what? Who are you?" "I'm Sarah," she said. "The first Sarah to escape her, or maybe the last. Time gets funny when you're stuck between possibilities." She patted the dock beside her. I sat, maintaining distance. 23 years ago, she said, I found a flyer, just like you, went to a support group, just like you. But back then she was calling herself Dr. Chen. My blood went cold. My therapist's name is Dr. Chen. Of course it is. She's been setting this up for months, years maybe, planting the seeds of doubt, making you question yourself, making you ready to see the flyer. But Dr. Chen is real. She has an office, other patients. She's as real as she needs to be. She feeds on doubt, on fractured identity, and what better way to create that than to slowly convince someone they're not whole, that they need to find themselves. The lake water lapped at the dock. In its surface I saw reflections. Not just mine and hers. Dozens of Sarahs, all at different ages, all trapped just beneath. The convergence isn't about bringing us together, older Sarah continued. It's about consuming us. Every Sarah she collects makes her stronger, more real, more able to hunt. So, stop going to the meetings. Warn the others. She laughed bitterly. You think you're the first to try. I've been warning Sarahs for 23 years, but once you've seen the flyer, once you've felt that pull, you always go back. The doubt she's planted is too strong. Then what do? Find the real first Sarah, the original, before she was split, before the doubt took hold. She's the key to stopping this. How do I find her? Older Sarah stood, brushing off her jeans. Same way you found me. Remember the first time you felt split. The first time you wondered if you were real. Before the therapy, before the dreams. Remember. She walked away, leaving me alone on the dock. In the lake's reflection, the trapped Sarahs pressed against the surface, all mouthing the same word. Remember. Tuesday came again. This time I didn't drive to St. Mary's. I walked. In the rain, without an umbrella. I was already drowning. What was a little more water? The side door was propped open, waiting. The basement hummed with voices. Not just from room B12, every room. All the voices mine. I pushed open the door to B12. The circle had expanded to fill the entire room. 50 Sarahs? 100? I couldn't count them all. Some were clear, present, solid. Others flickered like bad reception. A few were waterlogged, dripping, wrong. "She's here," they said in unison. The last one. Prime Sarah stood in the center of the circle. She looked less like me now, or more like me. It was hard to tell. Her edges kept shifting, absorbing the features of the Sarahs around her. "Do you understand now?" she asked. "We were never meant to be separate. All these branches, these possibilities, they're collapsing. Reality is correcting itself. By drowning us, by converging us, the dreams, the water. It's the space between possibilities. We're all swimming toward the same point, the same self. What happens to the others? To all of you?" She tilted her head. "Our head. That thinking gesture. We become what we were always meant to be. One Sarah, complete, whole. No more feeling split, no more sensing the lives we didn't live. Just one. And if I don't want that," the room went silent. 100 green eyes stared at me. "You don't have a choice," Prime Sarah said softly. "None of us do. It's already happening. Can't you feel it?" I could. The edges of my vision were blurring. I could see through my eyes and through the eyes of the Sarah next to me. Could feel my heart beating in 50 different chests. The drowning sensation wasn't water. It was us. All of us. Merging. "Fight it," a voice whispered. The waterlogged Sarah from last week. She stood just outside the circle, flickering in and out of existence. "The convergence isn't natural. She pointed at Prime Sarah. "She's not the original. She's the one who—" She disappeared mid-sentence, but I understood. Prime Sarah smiled. My smile, but wrong. The original is such a limiting concept. I'm the Sarah who figured it out, who found a way to gather all the scattered pieces, to become complete. You're killing them. Us. I'm saving us. No more loneliness. No more wondering what if. Just one perfect Sarah with all the experiences, all the memories, all the possibilities. The circle began to close. Sarahs standing, moving inward. Their faces blurred together, a kaleidoscope of myself. I backed toward the door, but it slammed shut. "It's time," Prime Sarah said. "Join us. Join yourself." The drowning hit me full force, not water, awareness. I could feel every choice I'd ever made and not made. Every path taken and abandoned. Every Sarah that had ever existed or could exist. The weight of infinite possibilities crushing down. I fell to my knees. Around me, Sarahs began to merge, 2 becoming 1, 4 becoming 2, 8 becoming 4. The room spun with the impossibility of it. "Stop fighting," Prime Sarah knelt beside me. Her hand on my shoulder was warm and cold and wet and dry all at once. "Let go. Become whole." I closed my eyes. Let the convergence take me. But, there was something else. In the darkness behind my eyelids, I saw her. Another Sarah. Standing apart from the convergence, watching. Waiting. She looked exactly like me. But her eyes were blue. I gasped. Pulled back from the merging. Blue eyes. I'd always wanted blue eyes as a kid, used to imagine myself with them. But that wasn't a possibility, wasn't a choice. That was just imagination. "You're not collecting possibilities," I said, pushing away from Prime Sarah. "You're collecting something else." The merging stopped. The room held its breath. Prime Sarah's face flickered. For just a moment, I saw something else underneath. Not me. Never me. "Clever," she said, but it wasn't my voice anymore. "Too clever," The other Sarahs began to wake up, the merging, reversing. They looked around, confused, afraid, real. "What are you?" I asked the thing wearing my face. She smiled, not my smile, something older, hungrier. "I'm the space between," she said. "The doubt, the voice that says you're not real, not worthy, not enough. I feed on that uncertainty, and you Sarahs, so full of doubt, so easy to gather, so easy to consume." The room exploded into chaos. Sarah's running, screaming, fighting to get out. The thing that had been Prime Sarah laughed, its form shifting, revealing something vast and dark and empty. I ran, we all ran. Up the stairs, out the door, into the rain. Behind us, St. Mary's Community Center groaned and shuddered. Windows shattered. The building seemed to fold in on itself, collapsing into that impossible basement room. In the parking lot, we stopped. 40, 50, 60 Sarahs. All real, all separate, all free. "What do we do now? Glasses?" Sarah asked. I looked at her, at all of them. My faces, but not my lives. Each one a real person who'd been caught by that thing's web. "We live," I said, "separately, as ourselves. No more support group, no more convergence, just us." They nodded. One by one, they got into their silver Honda Civics and drove away. Back to their lives, their choices, their possibilities. I was the last to leave. As I reached my car, my actual car, with the coffee stain on the passenger seat and the crack in the windshield, I turned back. St. Mary's Community Center stood intact, no broken windows, no collapse, just an old brick building in the rain. But in the basement window I saw a shadow, waiting, hunting, looking for the next group of people who felt like they were drowning in their own lives. That was 6 months ago. I still work at Powell's, still live alone with Biscuit, still have the dreams sometimes. But now I know the difference between possibility and predator, between doubt and danger, and sometimes in the city I see another Sarah. We nod, we smile, we keep walking. We're not alone, but we're ourselves. And that thing in the basement? It's still there, still hunting, still wearing faces that aren't quite right. So, if you see a flyer for a support group, for people who feel lost, split, uncertain, who feel like they're drowning in their own lives, keep walking. Some connections aren't meant to be made, some groups aren't meant to meet. And some faces, even if they look exactly like yours, aren't meant to smile back. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night, the thing I didn't tell the other Sarahs, the thing I can barely admit to myself. I kept the flyer. It's in my desk drawer, still blank to everyone but me, still whispering promises of understanding, of connection, of becoming whole. Because even knowing what I know, even after everything, sometimes I still feel like I'm drowning, and sometimes I wonder if that thing in the basement was wrong, or if it was the only one who truly understood, the only one who knew what it felt like to be scattered, the only one who offered to make us whole. Last week I saw Dr. Chen again. Not my Dr. Chen, the real one. She was confused when I showed up for an appointment I hadn't scheduled, concerned when I asked about identity issues and support groups. "Sarah," she said gently, "I've never recommended group therapy for you, and I certainly wouldn't send you to some basement meeting. Are you feeling all right?" I laughed, actually laughed, because what else could I do? She prescribed me something for anxiety. I didn't feel it. Pills can't fix what's broken when the break is in reality itself. But yesterday I found something, another notebook, hidden in my closet, behind boxes I'd never opened, filled with my handwriting. Page after page of the same sentence. The first Sarah is in the mirror, and at the very back, in handwriting that was mine but shaky, old. "Don't look too long." She looks back. I haven't looked in a mirror since. Can't bring myself to, because I know that when I do, I'll see her. The original, the one who started all this when she first doubted herself. When she first wondered if she was real. When she first split. The flyer is still in my drawer, still calling, and every Tuesday at 7 p.m. I sit in my car outside St. Mary's, watching the others go in, counting how many Sarahs enter, counting how many leave. The numbers never match, and in my dreams, I'm not drowning anymore. I'm floating, suspended between the surface and the bottom, between real and not, between one and many, waiting for the next Sarah to find the flyer, waiting for the cycle to begin again. Because that's the real horror, isn't it? Not that there are multiple versions of us, not that something hunts us through our doubt. It's that we do this to ourselves, over and over, Sarah after Sarah, group after group, all looking for connection, all finding consumption, all keeping the flyer, just in case. Sweet dreams. Oh, and one more thing. If you're listening to this at night, if you're alone, if you've ever felt like you're not quite yourself, check your desk drawer. You might be surprised what you find. Or who finds you. Story number 4. The smell hit me first. Not grain dust or diesel fumes from the trucks. Something else. Sweet. Wrong. Like meat left too long in August heat. I stood at the edge of Miller's cornfield, staring at that towering grain silo against the Nebraska sunset, and I knew. I finally knew why nobody in Hartsville talked about what happened to the Johansson twins. But I'm getting ahead of myself. See, if you're listening to this right now, lying in bed, maybe with your headphones on, you need to understand something. What I'm about to tell you isn't some made-up campfire tale. This happened. And somewhere out there, in another small farming town just like mine, it's probably happening again. So, before I tell you my story, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Not for me, but because after you hear this, you're going to want to warn others. You're going to need to share this, trust me. All right, deep breath, here we go. My name's Tyler Brennan, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought I knew everything about Hartsville, Nebraska. Population 2,847, 1 stoplight, 2 churches, 3 bars, and that massive grain silo on the edge of town that nobody, and I mean nobody, ever talked about. I just come back from college in Lincoln. 4 years studying agricultural science, thinking I'd help modernize our family farm. Dad picked me up from the bus station in his beat-up F-150, country music crackling through blown speakers. Everything felt exactly the same. The water tower still needed painting. Mrs. Henderson's roses still grew wild over her fence. Even the temperature on the bank sign still blinked between time and temperature like it had since 1987. "Good to have you home, son," Dad said. But his smile seemed tight, forced. That first week back was strange. Not obviously strange, just off. Like when you know a storm's coming hours before the clouds roll in. People would start conversations, then trail off mid-sentence. Groups would scatter when I walked into Donnie's diner. And everyone, kept glancing toward the grain silo. It stood there like it always had. 120 feet of weathered concrete and steel, built back in '58 according to the faded sign, but something was different. Took me 3 days to figure out what. No birds. You ever notice how birds love grain silos? Pigeons, sparrows, even crows. They're always perched on them, diving for spilled grain. But not this one, not a single bird within 50 yards of it. I asked Dad about it over dinner, just casual-like, while Mom served her famous pot roast. Hey, why doesn't anyone use the old silo anymore? The sound of forks hitting plates was deafening. Mom's hand shook as she poured gravy. Dad stared at his food like it held the secrets of the universe. My younger sister Emma, usually couldn't shut up about her high school drama, suddenly found her green beans fascinating. Some things, Dad finally said, are better left alone, Tyler. That's when I knew. whatever was wrong in Hartsville. It started with that silo. I spent the next few days asking around. Subtle questions at first. Jim at the hardware store just shook his head and walked to the back room. Sarah at the post office pretended she didn't hear me. Even my best friend from high school, Marcus, just laughed nervously and changed the subject. But I kept pushing. And finally, someone talked. It was old Pete, 92 years old, half-blind, and usually drunk by noon. I found him on his porch, bourbon in hand, staring at nothing. "You really want to know about the silo, college boy?" I nodded. He took a long swig. "Built in '58, like the sign says. Worked fine for, 20 years. Then in '78 something changed." "Changed how?" His milky eyes found mine. Grain started disappearing. Not stolen, just gone. 100 tons here, 50 tons there. Silos don't just leak grain, boy. It goes somewhere. So they stopped using it. They tried to fix it. Brought in engineers, inspectors. Found nothing wrong. He leaned forward, bourbon breath hot on my face. Then the Holbrook girl went missing. My blood chilled. Missing? Little Amy Holbrook, 8 years old, playing hide-and-seek with her cousins. They found her shoe. He pointed a trembling finger toward the silo. Right at the base, never found nothing else. But that could have been, then, the Carver boy in '82, the Martinez kid in '89, the Johansson twins in '07. His voice dropped to a whisper. Always children. Always near the silo. Always gone. I wanted to laugh, to dismiss it as a small-town superstition, but the fear in his eyes was real. "Pete, what do you think happened to them?" He drained his glass. "You ever hear grain settle at night, boy? Make sounds. Creaking, shifting. But sometimes if you listen real close and you can hear something else in there, something big. Something that ain't got no business being in no grain silo." That night I couldn't sleep. Pete's words echoed in my head. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to rationalize everything. Kids go missing sometimes. It's tragic, but it happens. And grain silos make noise, that's physics. Thermal expansion. Settling, nothing supernatural about it. But at 2 a.m. I gave up and got dressed. The town was dead quiet, no cars. No lights, except the street lamps buzzing with moths. I walked down Main Street, past the darkened shops, toward the edge of town where the silo waited. It looked different at night. Bigger, somehow. The moon was full, casting long shadows across Miller's cornfield. The silo stood like a monument to... what? Progress? Or something else? I stopped about 30 feet away, close enough to see details, but far enough to run if I needed to. God, why was I even thinking that? The structure was solid concrete, with a steel access door at the base and another higher up for maintenance. Ladder rungs were built into the side. Everything looked normal. Abandoned, sure, but normal. Then I heard it. A sound from inside, not grain settling, not metal creaking. Something else. Like breathing, but too big, too deep, like something massive filling its lungs. I took a step back, then another. The breathing stopped, and then, I swear to God, something moved inside. The whole structure seemed to shift slightly. Dust fell from invisible cracks, and from somewhere deep within came a sound that made my spine turn to ice. A child's laughter. Faint, echoing, wrong. I ran, sprinted back to my truck and drove home with my hands shaking on the wheel. But I couldn't let it go. Whatever was in there, whatever took those kids, someone had to do something. I started researching the next day. Town records, newspaper archives, everything I could find about the silo and the missing children. What I found made no sense. The silo was built by Hartsville Grain Company in 1958. Normal construction, normal operation. Then in 1978, exactly like Pete said, they started reporting grain losses. Massive losses. The company brought in expert after expert. They found no leaks, no theft, no explanation. Then I found the inspection report from 1979. The inspector, a man named David Walsh, noted something odd. The interior dimensions didn't match the exterior. According to his measurements, the silo was 15 feet narrower on the inside than it should have been. 15 feet of solid concrete? That made no sense. Unless something else was in there. Something that needed space. I dug deeper, found construction photos from 1958. Normal silo build, except there were gaps in the photo record. 3 weeks in September where no progress photos were taken. When they resumed, the silo was nearly complete. What happened during those 3 weeks? I was so absorbed in research I didn't hear Emma come into my room. "Tyler, you need to stop." I spun around. My 17-year-old sister stood in the doorway, face pale. "Stop what?" "Asking about the silo. Mom and Dad are scared. Everyone's scared." "Emma, what do you know?" She bit her lip, looked over her shoulder, then closed the door. "Remember when I was 12? That summer I went to stay with Aunt Carol in Omaha?" I nodded. I didn't go to Aunt Carol's. Her voice was barely a whisper. I went to the silo one night with Rebecca and Julie. We were doing that stupid Charlie challenge. Thought it would be funny to do it somewhere creepy. My blood ran cold. "Emma, we were there maybe 5 minutes when we heard it. The breathing. Then Rebecca said she saw eyes. Glowing eyes in the access hatch. We ran, but..." She was shaking now. "But Rebecca didn't make it home." "What do you mean?" "She was right behind us, right there. But when we got to Main Street, she was gone. We went back, found her bike. But Rebecca was just gone." "Emma, why didn't you..." "They found her 3 days later, walking out of Miller's cornfield, no memory of what happened. But Tyler..." She grabbed my arm. "She was different after. Wouldn't eat, wouldn't sleep, just kept drawing pictures of eyes. Huge eyes. And 3 months later, her family moved away. No forwarding address, no goodbye." The room felt colder. "There are others," Emma whispered. "Kids who got too close and survived. But they all leave, every single one. It's like it marks them somehow." After Emma left, I sat in the dark thinking. Part of me wanted to pack up and leave, go back to Lincoln, pretend I never came home, but another part, the stubborn part that got me through college, needed answers. I spent the next week watching the silo, not approaching it, just watching. Parked my truck at different spots around town where I could see it. Made notes, looking for patterns, and I found them. Every third night, around 3 a.m., lights would flicker inside. Not electric lights, something softer, like bioluminescence. They'd pulse in patterns, almost like communication. Delivery trucks avoided that side of town completely. I followed one driver to Donnie's diner and bought him coffee. After 3 cups and a promise I wouldn't use his name, he talked. GPS goes haywire near that thing, compass spins, radio turns to static. Company policy is to take the long way around. Been that way since before I started driving. How long's that? 15 years, but my dad drove grain trucks too. Said it was the same in his day. I showed him the inspection report about the dimensions. He studied it, frowning. That can't be right. You can't have space just disappear like that. Unless it's not empty space." He pushed the paper back. "Look, kid, I got a family, mortgage. I don't ask questions about that place, and neither should you." But I couldn't stop. The next morning, I went to the library. Mrs. Patterson, the librarian since forever, watched me pull book after book about local history. "Tyler Brennan," she finally said. "Some knowledge ain't worth having. Mrs. Patterson, please, I just want to understand." She looked around the empty library, sighed, then disappeared into the back room. She returned with a leather journal, brittle with age. This was my grandmother's. She helped build that silo. Was the company secretary? She handed it to me. Read it, then burn it, and never speak of it again. I took the journal home, locked my door, and read. The entries started normal. Supply orders, worker schedules, progress reports. Then came September 1958. September 3rd, Mr. Hartsville brought in special consultants today. Foreign men don't speak English. They're modifying the blueprints. September 7th, night work only now. Workers sworn to secrecy, extra pay to keep quiet. September 15th, something went wrong last night. 3 workers missing. Mr. Hartsville says they quit, but their trucks are still here. September 18th, the consultants brought something. A container. Metal, covered in symbols. They built it into the foundation. I wasn't supposed to see. September 22nd, it's in there now. God help us. It's in there. The consultants are gone. Mr. Hartsville says everything is fine. But I hear it at night, we all do. September 30th, grand opening tomorrow. Mr. Hartsville says if anyone talks, their families will suffer. I believe him. May God forgive us for what we've done. The entries stopped there. I sat back, mind reeling. They built something into the silo. Deliberately. But what? And why? That night, I made a decision. Maybe stupid, definitely dangerous. But I had to know. I gathered supplies. Flashlight, rope, camera, knife, though I didn't know what good it would do. At 2 a.m., I drove to the silo. The access door was padlocked, but the lock was old, rusted. 5 minutes with a crowbar and it snapped. The door swung open on silent hinges. The smell hit me immediately. That same sweet rot stench from before, but stronger. I clicked on my flashlight and stepped inside. The beam cut through darkness, revealing nothing. Empty space. Concrete walls curving up into blackness, but the dimensions were wrong, just like the report said. The space was too small. I played my light along the walls. Smooth concrete except there, about 10 feet up. Symbols carved deep. The same kind mentioned in the journal? I pulled out my camera, started taking pictures. The flash lit up the space in stark bursts. That's when I saw them. Scratches, hundreds of them. Names carved desperately into the concrete. Help me, Mommy, it hurts, and among them, Amy H., 1978. My hand shook. These were... The breathing started, deep, rhythmic, coming from the walls themselves. I backed toward the door, the breathing got louder, and then the walls moved, bulged outward like something massive pressing against them from inside. From somewhere above came that child's laughter again. But now I could hear what it really was. Not laughter, crying, dozens of children crying in unison. I ran for the door. It slammed shut. The padlock was broken. The door should have opened, but it didn't budge. I threw my shoulder against it. Nothing. The breathing was deafening now. The walls pulsed with each inhale. And from the darkness above, something descended. Not quickly, slowly, deliberately, like it was savoring the moment. I pressed against the door, flashlight beam dancing wildly. The thing came into view and my mind simply refused. Couldn't process what I was seeing. Eyes, dozens of them, but not arranged on any face, just clustered, watching, and behind them something that might have been flesh but moved like liquid. A voice spoke, not from any mouth, from everywhere. From inside my own head, finally, another. The thing descended further and I saw, God, I saw too much. The eyes weren't eyes. They were faces, children's faces, absorbed into something that pulsed and writhed like living tissue. Amy Holbrook's face was there, twisted, screaming silently. The Johansson twins. others I didn't recognize. So hungry. The voice was many voices, child voices, speaking in horrible unison. So long since feeding. I pressed harder against the door, praying, begging. The metal was ice cold despite the summer heat. The thing reached what might have been an appendage toward me. It moved wrong. Joints in places that shouldn't have joints. As it got closer, I felt pulling, like something inside me was being drawn out. Join us, Tyler. How did it know my name? We know all who live here, waiting, watching from inside. The appendage touched the wall next to my head. Where it made contact, the concrete dissolved, not melted, dissolved, like it was being digested. That's when I understood. This thing, it didn't just live in the silo, it was the silo. The concrete, the steel, just a shell, a cocoon, and we'd been feeding it grain for 20 years before it got hungry for something else. The door suddenly gave way. I tumbled backward into the night, scrambling in the dirt. Behind me, that chorus of children's voices rose to a wail. Come back! Come back! I ran, drove home, packed everything I could fit in my truck. Mom cried. Dad just nodded like he understood. Emma hugged me and whispered, "Don't come back." But before I left, I had to do one thing. I drove to the newspaper office, broke in, used their computer to upload everything, the photos, the journal entries, all of it. Posted it everywhere I could think of, news sites, social media, forums, anywhere people might see. By morning, I was 3 states away, but I kept checking online, watching, waiting. The posts disappeared, every single one, wiped clean like they never existed. But not before some people saw. Downloaded, shared. The truth was out there now, spreading like wildfire in dark corners of the internet. Hartsville's population started dropping, families leaving in the night. By winter, the town was half empty. The state tried to investigate, but their equipment failed near the silo. Investigators got sick, had nightmares, left without answers. Last I heard, they're planning to demolish it. Bring in the Army Corps of Engineers. Tons of explosives, level the whole thing. They don't understand. It's not in the silo, it is the silo. And it's hungry. So why am I telling you this? Because Hartsville isn't unique. I've been researching, tracking patterns, grain silos built in the 1950s, modified construction, missing children, towns that don't talk about it. I've found 17 so far. 17 towns with 17 silos with 17 secrets. Maybe there's one near you. Maybe you've driven past it 100 times. That old silo on the edge of town that nobody uses anymore. The one birds avoid. The one that makes sounds at night. Don't go looking. Don't be like me. But if you know, if you suspect, leave. Just leave. Don't ask questions. Don't investigate. Just go. Because they're hungry, all of them. And they're waiting. Waiting for someone curious, someone brave, someone stupid, someone like I was. The scratches on my arm haven't healed. 3 parallel lines where that thing touched me through my jacket. They don't hurt. But sometimes, late at night, they move. Pulse with their own rhythm. And when they do, I dream. I dream of eyes in the darkness, of children crying, of concrete walls that breathe, and worst of all, I dream of going back. Because here's the thing they don't tell you about monsters. The real horror isn't that they exist. It's that once they touch you, part of you wants to return, needs to return. That's why all those families moved away. It's why I keep driving. 3 states, 5 states, 8 states. Doesn't matter. I can still feel it calling. So, please, if you're listening to this in bed right now, if you're thinking about that old structure in your town, that abandoned building, that place nobody talks about, don't just hit subscribe. Share this story, warn others. Because somewhere out there, in the heartland of America, in small towns with 1 stoplight and 2 churches, something big lives in the grain silos, and it's spreading. Sweet dreams. Oh, one more thing. If you're from Hartsville, if you recognize the names, the places, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for what's coming, because last night, the scratches on my arm spelled out a message. Time to come home. And God help me. I think I'm going to listen. Wait, before you go, before you close this video thinking it's just another story, I need to tell you what happened yesterday. Why I'm really uploading this now. Why time is running out. I've been on the road for 3 weeks since leaving Hartsville, staying in motels, paying cash, different name each time. But yesterday, I woke up in my car parked outside a grain elevator in Kansas. Don't remember driving there. Don't remember stopping. My GPS history was wiped clean, the scratches on my arm. They'd grown. What started as 3 lines now sprawled up to my elbow, looking like a map. Roads and intersections spelled out in raised flesh, and at the center, a perfect circle, a silo. I recognized the intersection, County Road 47 and Highway 12, right outside Millfield, Iowa. I'd driven through Millfield once. Cute town, white picket fences, American flags on every porch, and a grain silo on the north end that looked exactly like Hartsville's. Same era, same construction, same dead zone where birds wouldn't fly. I tried to ignore it, threw out my phone, bought a new one, kept driving. But that night, I had the dream again. Except this time, I wasn't in Hartsville's silo. I was in all of them, 17 silos, 17 sets of eyes. But they weren't separate creatures. They were connected, like organs in some massive body stretched across the Midwest. And in the dream, I could feel them breathing together, synchronized, waiting. And I saw the children, not absorbed into the walls like in Hartsville. These were different. Walking around their towns, going to school, playing in parks, normal kids living normal lives. Except they all had the same scratches, hidden under sleeves and jackets, pulsing with that same wrong rhythm. And their eyes. When they looked at each other, there was recognition, understanding, like they were all part of something bigger. I woke up screaming. The motel manager was pounding on my door, threatening to call the cops. I grabbed my stuff and ran, but in the parking lot I saw her, a little girl, maybe 7 years old, standing by the ice machine at 4 a.m. She rolled up her sleeve, showing me 3 parallel scratches. "He says you're ready," she whispered. "He says it's time to come home. All of us. To all of them." She walked away, and I saw others, stepping out of rooms, out of cars, all ages, all with those same marks, moving in the same direction, north, toward Millfield. I should have run the other way, should have driven south until I hit Ocean, but the scratches burned, and my hands turned the wheel north without my permission. The convoy grew as we drove, cars joining from every side road, license plates from all over, Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri. Dozens of us, then hundreds, all silent, all marked, all going home. We reached Millfield at sunrise. The town was empty, like everyone knew to leave, storefronts dark, streets deserted. Only the silo stood waiting, but it looked different, bigger. The concrete seemed to pulse with anticipation. We parked in neat rows, got out in unison, walked toward it like sleepwalkers. I tried to resist, but my legs weren't mine anymore. The little girl from the motel took my hand. Her touch was ice cold. "Don't fight it," she said. "It's easier if you don't fight." The silo door was open. Not the ground level door. That was still padlocked. This was a new opening, organic, like the concrete had split apart to form a mouth. We lined up, a single file. The first person walked in and vanished into the darkness. Then the next, and the next. No screams, no struggle, just acceptance. I was 20th in line, 19th, 18th. Close enough now to see inside, to see what waited. It wasn't darkness in there, It was something worse. Space that didn't follow rules. Geometry that hurt to perceive. And floating in that impossible space, the children. All the missing children from 70 years. Not dead, not alive. Something in between. Connected by threads of light to something massive and ancient and hungry. 10 people ahead, 9, 8. That's when I felt it. The full weight of what was happening. This wasn't just feeding time. This was reproduction, division. The thing in Hartsville was sending out spores. Human spores. To seed new silos, new towns, new hunting grounds. 5 people ahead, 4. The little girl squeezed my hand. "It's beautiful inside," she said. "You'll see. We all float. We all dream. We all become." 3, 2, I stood at the threshold. The space beyond defied understanding, but I could see them all. The missing children, the absorbed ones, floating like stars in an organic cosmos, their faces peaceful, their eyes empty, their mouths moving in unison, speaking words in no human language. "Come," they said with one voice. "Come home." My foot lifted, started to step forward. The scratches on my arm blazed with joy, and then my phone rang. The spell shattered, just for a second. But a second was enough. I yanked my hand from the girl's grip and ran. Behind me, hundreds of voices rose in frustration. The phone kept ringing. Unknown number. I answered while running. "Tyler!" Emma's voice, my sister. "Tyler, I know you threw away your phone, but I had to try. I've been calling random numbers all night. Tyler, if this is you..." "The Army? They're not going to demolish just Hartsville. They know about all of them. They're going to hit them all at once. Operation Grain Dust, you have minutes, maybe less. Get away from..." The line went dead, but I heard them. Helicopters. Distant but approaching fast. I reached my car, gunned it. In the rearview mirror, I saw the others still walking into the silo, still calm, still willing. The little girl stood at the entrance watching me go. She waved goodbye. The first missile hit when I was 2 miles out. The explosion was wrong. Not fire and debris, something else. Like reality tearing, the silo didn't explode, it imploded, folded in on itself. And for just a moment, I saw what was really inside. God help us all. It wasn't 17 creatures in 17 silos. It was one creature. One impossible thing stretched across states. Using the silos like breathing tubes, like fingers pushed up through the earth. And we just cut off 17 fingers. The thing screamed, not with sound, with something deeper. The ground cracked, the sky flickered, every car alarm for 50 miles went off at once, and in that scream I heard pain, rage, and worst of all, promise. The scratches on my arm are words now, clear as day, burned into my skin. "You cannot kill what does not live. You cannot stop what has already spread. We are in the grain. We are in the soil. We are in you." So that's why I'm uploading this now, right now, before they find me, before the scratches spread further, before I become like the others. Because the Army thinks they won. 17 silos destroyed. Threat eliminated. But they're wrong. Those weren't the only ones. I found more, built in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, different designs, different disguises, water towers, radio antennas, even church steeples in the right towns, all of them connected, all of them breathing, all of them waiting. And the children, the marked ones, who walked into Millfield. Some escaped the explosion. They're out there now, walking, driving, flying, spreading to new towns, new structures, new hunting grounds. The scratches have reached my shoulder now. By tomorrow they'll reach my neck, then my face. Then I'll stop running, stop fighting, and I'll find the nearest structure that fits the pattern. And I'll walk inside, and I'll become another voice in the chorus. Unless you stop me. Stop us. Stop it. Look for the signs. Structures that birds avoid. Places where electronics fail. Towns with too many missing children and not enough questions. Document everything, share everything. Make so much noise they can't silence you all, because it's not over, it's just beginning. And somewhere out there, maybe in your town, maybe in mine, something big is waiting to be born. The scratches are moving again, forming new words. I have to go, have to drive, have to... No, I won't look. Won't read what they're spelling now. Won't. Upload complete. Come home now. If you're still listening, still watching, remember this. Remember all of it. Share it, save it, before they delete this too. And if you see me, if you see any of us, the ones with scratches, the ones who walk toward empty places, don't follow, don't help, just run. Run, and never stop running. Because we're not ourselves anymore. We're something else, something hungry,